Welcome back, team. Today we are talking about Dr. Jeffery Lang's journey, finding the purpose of life, and specifically we're talking about what he discovered the Qur'an has to say about choice and suffering. Let's get to it. Assalamu alaikum, my friends. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Miraj Mohideen in here TAing for Professor Jeffery Lang as we talk about the purpose of life. Remember, we had this equation that he's working on. He's a true mathematician, and he's working on this equation right now. First, we talked about his journey to the atheism and the problem of suffering, how it led him out of faith, Catholicism. Second, we dove into his journey with the Qur'an, specifically the story of Adam, intellect, morality, and choice. And then, from all that, he extracted the three major principles that he was working with is, what does the Qur'an have to say about reason, choice, and suffering? Because there's something about these three topics that he just cannot understand why the Qur'an would be emphasizing these when these very three topics are the things that generally kick people out of faith. But the Qur'an paradoxically is saying you need to focus on the stuff. This is the stuff that will bring you closer in faith. So we're going to talk about today, what does the Qur'an say about choice and suffering? We already talked about reason, remember? And the Qur'an says, have you not considered? Do you not think? Have you not pondered? And so essentially the Qur'an is saying when it comes to reason, yes, use it. Absolutely. Use your noggin. Not like other traditions where it says, don't think, don't question authority. Just accept it blindly. The Quran says, no, 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 no. Use it, because if you use it properly, it's going to bring you to God, an awareness of God, not running away from God. And you know what's interesting is I was preparing for today's talk, I was just thinking to myself, some of the fundamentals of the Western, of Western civilization and Western thought, the bedrock principles are so different than the principles in Islamic thought. And so, you have this whole thing, Islam versus the West and like this, this built up hype about this kind of stuff. And a lot of it is hype. But it's very important to recognize too, some of the very core foundational presumptions. If you're coming from the West, there's no way you're going to understand Islam if you think God is an angry God. Because you're very likely assuming that Muslims think God is an angry God too. Does that make sense? If you're coming from a tradition that says that reason and religion are mutually exclusive, and then you look at other people who are religious, you're just going to, by nature, think that they are irrational also. Not recognizing that Islam, it does what? It tells us to use it elevates reason and rationality. So just if you have these core differences in the basic principles, it kind of makes sense that you're going to have a lack of understanding unless we start really getting to know each other better. So anyway, let's keep moving forward with part 3 of this series right here. I'm calling this part 3. This is part 1, part 2, and this is part 3 right now. Let's see what Dr. Jeffery Lang has to say about what the Qur'an says about choice.
Does it put great emphasis on choice? Well, here's what it has to say. Let there be no compulsion in religion. The right way is henceforth clear from error. It's a choice, and it must be freely made. And it's a choice between correctness and error, between right and error, between reason and falsity. Had God willed, he could have indeed guided you all, it says in the Qur'an. I went, why not? I thought, why not just guide us all? Why let some of us choose to go this way and that way? The Qur'an was constantly provoking me as I read it. Do not the unbelievers know that had God willed, he could have guided all mankind? Oh, do not the believers know that had God willed, he could have guided all mankind? Okay, I'm an unbeliever, I thought. Tell me, why didn't you guide all mankind? If you want us to be in conformity of your will, just make us that way. And if we had so willed, we could have given every soul its guidance. Why did you let us be creatures of choice? Just program us to do the right thing. Never make a wrong choice. Had God willed, he could have made us all one community. He could have made us clones of one another. But he didn't. It wasn't part of his plan. Enlightenment has come from your Lord. He who sees does so to his own good. He who is blind is so to his own hurt. It's your choice. It says it again and again in the Quran. Remember when I was reading this, I was a disbeliever. And this scripture is constantly reminding me, it's your choice, Jeff. It's no compulsion in this. It's your choice. It's up to you. You don't, You're probably not reasoning correctly here. Think a little harder. Come on, try. It's just a few more steps. And whoever is guided is only to his own gain, and whoever is stray, I am only a warner. It's your choice. We have revealed to you the book with the truth for mankind. He who lets himself be guided does so as for his own good. He who goes astray, it's to his own hurt. It's his choice. There are many, many such references. I'll stop there. But you get the point. The Quran clearly emphasizes that choice plays a key role in our development.
So when it comes to choice, we already said for reason, yes, use it. The Quran, what is it saying about choice right here? It is saying there is no compulsion in religion. God could have guided all of us, but he didn't for a reason. Now, what is that reason? We're going to dive into that. But we can take away from this that every second of our day is choices. Every year of our life, we make choices. And just to drive the point home, imagine this is a typical day. When you wake up in the morning, you wake up. You have a choice. Do I want to go this way or do I want to go this way? And then from there, you have a choice. Do I want to go this way or do I want to go this way? And if you came here, do I want to go this way or do I want to go this way? And you can just see you have this decision making branching out to live your life. And this is just a day, right? This is like an hour of our lives. Every day we make choices. And these choices, if we make the right choices, they can take us all the way up here. But if we don't make the right choice, or if we don't make a choice, which in itself is a choice, if you just follow the default, right, which a lot of people do, they're just kind of just letting culture and society take them where they want to, you can drift down in a different direction. Or you might be somewhere else in between, or you might be over here. But every day is a choice. And it's really important to recognize that. And again, hear what I'm saying here. Your choice not to make a choice is a choice. Your choice to go with the flow, that is a choice. Just as much as an active choice, a passive choice has equal, if not more harmful repercussions. So every second of your day is a choice. And God is saying you can choose whatever you want. But I've given you intellect, I've given you reasoning to figure out, try to make the right choices. Okay? So let's see here. What have we discovered so far? Reason? Check. Definitely use it. Choice? Absolutely. You can do whatever you want. You have a choice between good and bad. Now, let's get into suffering. So, what does the Qur'an have to say about suffering? And this is a really big one. This is the big one because, some people might leave faith because they're intellectualizing religion out of their lives. But a lot of people will leave faith because of the suffering they've been through. And you don't need me to tell you that. Many of you maybe have gone through very traumatic experiences. Spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, abuse from your parents, or societal, kind of observing society and the suffering society. There's so many reasons that you might question God. So what does the Quran have to say about suffering? Let's take a listen to what Dr. Jeffery Lang has to say.
But what about suffering? I mean, suffering's the biggie, right? I mean, that's the real major question. What does the Quran have to say about suffering? Because every religion deals with suffering in a different way. It's either something you have to be saved from, and so some religions stress salvation, or it's something that you have to sort of transcend through meditation and training so you can sort of not feel it so much, get above it and beyond it. Some religions see it as primarily punishment. Some see it as, some of the more ancient religions see it as the result of the precarious and whimsical control of many gods working against each other, playing with human beings. Different religions have dealt with it in different ways. But almost all of them, I would indeed say all of them, have sort of seen it as something not so good. But let's see what the Quran has to say about it. Something to be avoided, to transcended, to be saved from. The Quran says just the opposite. You are going to experience it. You will suffer in this life. And it plays a fundamental role in your development, in your growth, and in what you are to become. This scripture didn't just say you're going to experience it. It said you should embrace it. You should struggle through it. Your life should be a struggle, it says. It should be a jihad. Yeah, right? But that's what it says. Jihad means struggle. When the Quran most says jihad, it's very seldom, it's most often not in the context of fighting. Qital is the Arabic word for fighting. But it says even in the Mecca verses, long before Muslims had to defend themselves against their oppressors, it mentions that you have to struggle in the path of God. With the Quran, it even says. Struggle in the path of God with this Quran. Life is a struggle. It says in one verse, most assuredly we will try you with something of danger and hunger and the loss of worldly goods, with the loss of your lives and the fruits of your labor. Most assuredly we will try you. It's not just talking about evil people, good people. But give the good news, the glad tidings. Be happy for those who are patient in adversity and suffering. Good news, I thought? Doesn't the author understand the terrible effects of suffering? Give the good news to those who are patient through adversity, who when calamity befalls them say, truly unto God we belong and truly unto him we shall return. In other words, that this could benefit them. It was a remarkable statement. Here's another one. Do you think that you can enter paradise without having the like of those who passed away before you? And the next verses start to explain these people were good people who suffered terribly. Do you think that you can enter paradise without going through the same? Why, I thought? Why do we have to suffer in life? Misfortune and hardship befell them, and so shaken were they that the apostle and the believers with him would exclaim, when will God's help come? These are good people. When will God's help come? Oh, truly, God's help is always near. You will certainly be tried in your possessions and yourselves, the Quran tells the reader. You're going to face hardship. It's guaranteed. Every soul must taste of death, and we try you with calamity and prosperity, both as a means of trial. And to us you are returned. You are going to have hardship here. There is going to be no heaven on earth. This environment is made to be an environment of adversity. It is made to be an environment where you have to work, where you have to struggle, where you have to strive. And it plays a key role. Oh man, truly you've been toiling to your Lord in painful toil, but you shall meet him. You're toiling, yes, but you shall meet him. We certainly created man to face distress. What, I thought? We certainly have created man to face distress. You made us to face distress? Does he think that no one has power over him? Sometimes people get, so down, they just think, this can't be a God. Look how I'm suffering. He will say, I have wasted much wealth. Some people just become totally devoted to worldly aims. Does he think that no one sees him? Have we not given him 2 eyes to see with, a tongue, and 2 lips to communicate with, to learn from by communicating? Can't he see around him? Can't he tell from communication with other people? Haven't we pointed out to him the 2 conspicuous ways? What are the 2 conspicuous ways? But he attempts not the uphill climb. One of them is the uphill climb. And it says this is the way you should be pursuing. And what will make you comprehend the uphill climb? It is to free a slave, or to feed in a day of hunger an orphan nearly related, or the poor one lying in the dust. Then he or she is of those who believe, and exhorts one another to patience, and exhorts one another to mercy. You have not attained to faith until you struggle the uphill climb. It's telling us you should pursue the uphill climb. What is the uphill climb? Reaching out to your fellow man who suffers. To feed the poor one, to help the poor soul that's lying in the dust. And all over the world there are people in that state. And we watch the news as if it's just entertainment. And the Quran tells us this is something you should involve yourself in. That is the road that you should travel. It describes a successful life as an uphill climb.
It describes a successful life as the uphill climb. Now you see why I call this The Climb, this series. This is life. God is telling us in the Qur'an, what is he saying about suffering? He is saying, you will suffer. It's unavoidable. You cannot evade suffering. Suffering is necessary. That's why we have to go through it and embrace the challenge. Embrace the suffering. Embrace the suffering. Who wants that life? I thought the whole point of religion is to live this happy, idyllic life. The Qur'an is saying the opposite. If we look at the prophets, they endured the most difficult lives, the most suffering. So if they are suffering and they are God's chosen prophets, do you think we are not going to suffer? And that's what the Qur'an says. Do you think you won't be tested like previous generations were tested? See, this was a huge breakthrough for me. If you look at society right now, a lot of literature, self-help, and all the whole genre, right, a lot of it is often about how to try to live the most comfortable life, right? How to avoid all suffering and all challenges and so forth. And I'm not saying we have to be gluttons for punishment, but at the same time, God is saying you will be tested. You will suffer. You cannot evade it, right? And the proof is right there. Even in the most, the richest countries, you have the highest levels of depression. That is suffering. So you can't evade the suffering. You can't invade the challenge, the climb of life. Now the question is, so you're telling me that whatever path I choose, it's going to be an uphill climb? What kind of life is that to climb uphill? Well, we're going to get into this idea of what brings happiness to human beings. But I will say right now that from one of the major books that I hope to kind of present to you guys after this series is that science has shown, lots of science, looking at what brings happiness to human beings, it is not the avoidance of suffering. That might bring comfort, but it doesn't bring pure joy and happiness. It is actually in the embracing of the challenge where people actually experience their highest levels of happiness, what's called a flow state. So we'll get into that in another episode. But for right now, what we have come to is this summary of what does the Qur'an say about reason, choice, and suffering. The Qur'an says when it comes to reason, yes, absolutely. We gave you this brain, so use it. It's what makes you different than all other creation. You better use this. Number two, when it comes to choice, God is saying you are completely free to do whatever you want. Every day, every minute, every hour is a choice that you can make. The question is, will you make the right choice? And number three, when it comes to suffering, yes, suffering is inevitable and it is necessary for your growth. Okay. What do we do with this right here? Because like Dr. Lang said, these three things drive people out of religion. God is saying use these three to come to religion. It's an essential part of your growth. Growth for what? Growth for why? And this is where it starts getting really interesting because Dr. Lang starts looking at this and says it's inevitable and it's necessary, the uphill climb as opposed to the downhill climb. But what if I don't want to take the uphill climb? And then he goes to his famous question, right? God, why are you making us do this uphill climb on earth, this difficult trudge up the mountain to the top? Why couldn't you just pop us into heaven? Make us all angels, put us into heaven, and let's skip this whole charade. And this is a refrain he says time and time again. He says it, let me try to do his voice, and this is out of love. He says, why can't you just pop us into heaven like angels? Why make us go through all this suffering? And this is the big question. We talked about all this stuff. We talked about suffering. We talked about the story of Adam. We talked about reason, choice, and suffering again in the Quran. Why go through all this? God, why can't you just make all of us angels up in the clouds in heaven and just skip this whole simulation, this whole charade? Why do we have to go and do this uphill climb? What are we growing for? What is the point of all this growth, this climbing that we have to do? That we'll have to wait for the next episode because we're going to talk about this idea of personal growth and how the Qur'an frames the concept of what we're supposed to grow into, why we're supposed to do that, and how that's supposed to happen. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There was a lot in this episode. Feel free to watch it again and again. Feel free to like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, share this with anyone who you think might benefit from it. We are getting closer to the home stretch here, the equation on the purpose of life. I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode, inshallah. I will see you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum.